So what comes to mind when you hear the name Cronenberg? Violence? Horror? Exploding heads? Murder? Twisted plots? You'd be right if any of those descriptions come to mind. Some call Cronenberg the master of body horror. However, the director rejects this moniker and refers to the body as beautiful, outside and within. You may have wondered what director David Cronenberg has been up to recently. Well, he's been busy writing books and making short films and acting in small parts in friends' movies and in television. But recently, David Cronenberg has returned as the director with his latest creation for your enjoyment, or disgust, in a tale of the not-too-distant future where humanity is evolving. Hi, I'm Rob, and today we are looking at David Cronenberg's Crimes of the Future on A Constantly Racing Mind. Crimes of the Future is his latest offering. Now, this film is not to be confused with a movie of the same name that he wrote and directed in 1970. The stories are totally different. Mostly. So let's start with the year 2022. Crimes of the Future. If this is the first time you have visited this channel, we cover the genres of sci-fi, horror, action-adventure, prop culture, and all things geek. If you find the video informative or entertaining, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to be aware of my new content. Now, according to the director, he wrote the screenplay for Crimes of the Future 20 years ago in the early 1990s. However, Cronenberg also claims that he did nothing to update his earlier script. The themes of the film are still relevant today, even more so. In the not-too-distant future, the devastating impacts of climate change and pollution have prompted tremendous developments in biotechnology, including the construction of machines and analog computers that can directly interact and control biological functions. Now, the film opens with a scene of a ship in the distance, listed over on its side. Simultaneously, humanity has gone through a variety of biological modifications, if you will, removing physical pain and infectious disease for the vast majority. Now, this enables surgery to be safely conducted on conscious people in everyday settings. It's the most significant of these changes. However, other humans undergoing more profound physiological changes occur. Now, one of them, Brecken, an 8-year-old boy, is digging for something at the water's edge. The boy has the intrinsic ability to absorb and digest plastics as food. Now, the reports from the Cannes premiere showed that some people walked out of the theater in disgust. And I can see why, but it's not what you think. The scene doesn't leave anything to the imagination, but it is sad and tragic. The woman calls the child's father, a guy named Lang. Scott Speedman from Underworld fame plays Lang, while seemingly a minor scene supposedly to provide context for this world. The child and his fate is a central touchpoint in the film and humanity's history. We find that the character of Saul Tenser, whom Viggo plays, he's a performance artist. But then again, who is it nowadays? They take advantage of Tenser's accelerated evolutionary syndrome, a condition that causes the body to generate new vestigial organs, and by surgically removing them in front of a live audience. Now, Tenser relies on several specialized biomechanical devices, including a bed, a machine via which Caprice performs surgery on him, and a chair that assists him with eating due to his syndrome's chronic agony and severe respiratory and intestinal difficulties. Now, there's a weird organ-looking sack thing hanging from the ceiling, and Sadoo's Caprice enters the room and opens the sack thing to unveil Saul resting within. Léa Seydoux plays Caprice. Of course, we remember Léa from the last two 007 films, playing the latest and final Bond girl. However, she also starred in other films where the body is the primary focus. Saul is in pain. Saul is always in pain. How would you feel internally if you start having your existing organs squeezed by tumorous growths? One of the first growths that his partner Caprice identifies in the film is some sort of endocrine gland. Caprice used to be a trauma surgeon, and this is how she and Saul met. Tenser and Caprice meet with officials from the National Organ Registry, a governmental agency tasked with cataloging and keeping newly evolved organs to enforce the state's prohibitions on human evolution. Now, Saul's aesthetic goals captivate one of the bureaucrats, the jittery Timlin. She tells Tensor at one of his successful shows that surgery is the new sex, a statement that Tensor appears to appreciate. While listed as one of the show's stars, Kristen Stewart is, in fact, more of a supporting character. However, her understated performance shines through with nothing over the top, but captivates the underlying allure of cutting and opening the body while rejecting humanity's eventual transhumanism. Now, transhumanism is a social and intellectual movement focused on the discovery and development of robust human enhancement and technology. Such technologies would improve human health and increase lifespans by boosting or expanding human sensory reception, affective ability, or cognitive capabilities. Now, unbeknownst to Caprice, Tensor is being used by a government police squad to infiltrate a group of radical evolutionists. Tensor meets a series of contacts through other physical performance art exhibitions. There's one featuring a dance with ears sewn all over the body that brings him to the evolutionists. Now, with the sewn-on ears, the dancer has no true mutations or evolutionary adaptations. He is a charlatan, unlike Saul. Now, a former cosmetic surgeon named Nassatir builds a vaginal zippered cavern in Tensor's stomach, which Caprice uses as an oral sex act to access Tensor's organs. Caprice continues to network with other performers, ultimately opting for a decorative cosmetic surgery on her forehead. Now, Saul visits with Timlin, who exposes the evolutionists' agenda. They have chosen to alter digestive systems so that they can ingest plastic and other man-made poisons. Their primary source of nutrition is a purple manufactured candy bar of hazardous waste that is fatal to everybody else. Lang is the cell's leader, and his kid Brecken was conceived with the ability to consume plastic, demonstrating the government's skepticism of human evolution. Aroused by Saul's surgeries, Timlin wants to have sex with Tensor, but he refuses since the old kind of sex is just not for him. Welker Bungeway plays the vice cop. He usually meets Saul by the docks. The cop and Saul exchange information. For the most part, these exchanges allow us, the audience, in on some of the clues as to what is happening in politics and society of the future. But unfortunately, the future in this film isn't bright, but somewhat bleak. The movie was filmed in Greece, and everything looks very old, with peeling paint. Green and blue color palette dominates the film with light orange tinges throughout the film. There are no good or bad guys in the film that I can see. Furthermore, the film does not show a clear black and white society in the future. Instead, we see humanity struggling to adapt to an ever-changing world. Cronenberg relishes in showing us that despite how we have changed the world, humanity will prevail by adapting to the climate and our pollution. This is a strange film, a strange experience, and a strange existence. Saul and Caprice have an interesting relationship, and as humans go into the future, we will see how they approach romantic otherwise relationships. As a result, we're essentially learning everything there is to know. These two individuals tell us a lot of stuff. Now, none of what we see on screen is overly sexual or even horrific. Léa Seydoux' character apparently is somewhat based on Gina Payne, a performance artist from the late last century. Payne's performance work contained a lot of self-inflicted damage, which set her apart from most other female body artists of the 1970s. Payne hoped that by cutting her skin with razor blades or putting out fires with her bare hands and feet, the viewer would be compelled to identify with her agony. Early performances, or actions as she preferred to call them, were sometimes eclipsed by her prodigious photographic and sculptural output. Payne's work, however, was centered on the flesh, literally or metaphorically. Caprice is essentially the film's heart and soul. I was emotionally drawn to her character, and I feel she is the only one in the film that truly elicits an emotional response from the audience. With her devotion to Saul, she's his surgeon, and he's her business partner. They share an intimacy beyond what we as an audience expect to see in a film that, in its heart, a strange romance. Viggo Mortensen's Saul is stoic, calm, and reserved. He's not flamboyant, but determined. He knows the world is evolving. He is the mind of this film, while Caprice is the emotional element, and Saul is cerebral. Several secondary characters make statements reflecting Cronenberg's feeling about pain and how he feels about surgery or cutting. In addition, they act like exclamation points to highlight thoughts about this future society. Howard Shore is a Canadian composer who, as of this date, has scored all of Cronenberg's films, except for 1983's The Dead Zone. Shore has scored over 80 films, including Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit trilogy. That said, Howard Shore sometimes provides a somber, dirge-like atmosphere with sad or melancholia. His score for The Section is the new surgery scene, while Dark is somewhat still hopeful. The tone of the film seems distant and unconnected. Of all the film's characters that I had any connection to the audience, I believe was Caprice. Now, on the other hand, Saul seems distant and direct. Now, did I like this film? Yes and no. I recommend this film to more hardcore sci-fi fans or fans of the body horror subgenre. However, I didn't think this film was horrific with the gore. I thought it was very tolerable. Or am I just that insensitive to it now? I think the film points out that we, as a species, will have to adapt to an ever-changing and more toxic environment. Now, when I went to see the film, we were alone in the theater, and there wasn't a lot of promotion, at least in my area, which I thought was strange for a crazy film like this. Cronenberg is an exciting and well-spoken writer and director. His films are thought-provoking, and the body horror accentuates the point the director wants to make. Now, I do think that the body and the technology combination is just a reflection of what we are experiencing now and in the future. The film is rated R, and it's 1 hour and 47 minutes long. If you have seen David Cronenberg's Crimes of the Future, let me know what you think. Also, if you found this video interesting, please hit the like button and share the video. Oh, by the way, take a look at this video right there. I'll see you next time. Take care.